Brian and Jonathan attended the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference last week. Jonathan got closer to finding the social VR platform of the future. They both met up with fans and supporters of the show, and Brian found this.
So, how many of you were here in 2014 when this whole thing first started? A couple of you. So, I did something for that conference I'd never done in my life before, which is I heard about it, and I called Kim Krantz, the organizer, and was like, Carl Krantz, sorry. And I was like, hey man, you don't have any women speaking. You gotta include a woman. And I'd never done that before in my life. And Carl was like, man, we're already done. We're booked. I can't. And I was like, I called up Palmer. I called up my friends at DreamWorks, and they all, I don't know if they called Carl, but he's like, all right, you can come be a moderator. And then I came, and I was the only female speaker in 2 days, and there was like 3 women in the audience, and I kept my brave face on the whole time. And I literally, when I got home, this gives you an idea what it's like. As soon as I walked in the door, I put my head on my table and I cried. It was so hard to be the only woman.
Actually, he didn't find her. Her name is Nani de la Pina, and she was one of the keynote speakers at the convention. Let's have a listen to some more of what she has to say.
If you go to the movies, right, you're experiencing it with your entire body. If something scary happens, you jump, right? And virtual reality really should be and is about the same thing. In fact, kind of times a million. My very first experience with VR, where I understood this to be true, was in a lab in Barcelona run by these couple, Mel Slater and Maria Sanchez Vives at the University of Barcelona. And they were studying the bystander effect, right? But you can't put people on scene at a real violent event. You have to do something else. So they built a VR experience where this kind of drunk guy gets off the bar stool and he's going to attack somebody who's wearing the wrong sports clothing, right? And I remember, this is quite a few years ago, and I remember this feeling of like the cable, I'm trying to get closer, and the headset's connected to the cable, and I'm straining to go, oh my God, what's going on here? And that was a moment when I realized I didn't want my audience out there, I wanted my audience in here.
I have to agree, Pina. VR does have a great ability to create empathy. In fact, I hope that recreating certain stories as virtual reality experiences will help us develop empathy for the group of people society is least empathetic towards. Men. Maybe we could get feminists to experience life as a father in family court about to lose his kids, or experience a false rape accusation, or being beaten by your wife and then arrested for domestic violence, or being raped and laughed out of a police station because the person who violated you was female. We could do historical reenactments too. Let's go back 100 years and experience being handed a white feather for cowardice during World War I, and then forced into service, where you end up choking to death on mustard gas, or being on the Titanic and giving your seat on the lifeboat to the women you're currently oppressing. So many possibilities. Let's see what Pina wants to do with VR.
So I'm going to go back even further to the 1990s to something called a rape in cyberspace, which some of you may recall. It was written by a guy named Julian Dibble, and it was about a text-based virtual world that some guy hacked into and started raping women. And the women were incredibly upset. And this brought up this whole dialogue, like, you know, why would women who have no body there, nothing's physically happening to them, why do they feel so upset? Now, I was taking students into Second Life. I had built a virtual Guantanamo Bay prison in Second Life very early on, and I wanted to look at sexual harassment in Second Life. Now, there was a lot of research already being done on how women in the offline world and on like web pages or bulletin boards found situations more harassing than men did. And I wanted to see if that was true in Second Life as well. But, and certainly the stuff I got back was pretty amazing. You know, I was rounded up, virtually raped repeatedly. The third time, someone attached a giant penis over my head, right? And kind of craziness, and here's a little video that we captured, which kind of gives you an idea of what a flying penis might come and sort of touch your head, right? Completely absurd, right? Not surprisingly, just like in all the other instances, women found the situations more harassing than men did. But here is something we didn't expect. And I was working with Jackie Morey and Matthew Curtis on this project at USC. And we realized that we had the data that on enough men who played women as well, because we've been collecting these sort of anonymous surveys. Now, because we hadn't set out to find out, we didn't ask them, you know, why they were playing women, and there's all kinds of different reasons. It isn't necessarily they want to be a woman. Sometimes you feel like people are you're more approachable, et cetera, et cetera. And the amazing thing about the results was that men who were playing women in VR felt more upset than the women did when they were harassed.
Pina scares the shit out of me. She should scare the shit out of you too. Most people already make their memories conform to the dominant social narrative. Pina and the belief system she represents will now be able to supercharge this process. Everyone's experiences can be brought in line with the dominant social narrative. Not just our memories, which, let's face it, is a messy process that allows for personal autonomy. Personal autonomy. What a regressive concept. Maybe social justice warriors can create a funny little phrase to make fun of it. Women are either victims of men or they obey feminism without question. The only way that women have their individual agency acknowledged at all is to sacrifice it by obeying feminist edicts. Otherwise, they're just handmaidens. And men, they get to learn how they're the prime movers, to blame for everything unless they also supplicate to feminism. Men are players, women are points on a scoreboard. Feminism is the referee. And also invented the game and the rules. With VR, we can welcome a new feminism, Feminism 3.0, extremist gender roles installed directly into your brain. Now, before I tell you why we need to oppose this, if that isn't obvious, let me first ask my usual uncomfortable, prickly question, the one I ask every time. If you believe in what we do and don't currently support us, please ask yourself why. This question is starting to feel critical somehow. Write the answers in the comments below. Don't bother if you don't like us or if you think we're useless. It's obvious why you don't support us, and there's no reason for you to support us. I'm asking you, the person who does think we can make a difference, the difference you want to see in the world, why don't you support? If you decide there's no reason not to, please go to www.feedthebadger.com. We could really use some help covering the fees for this VR conference. Or go to patreon.com/honeybadgerradio to help us with ongoing costs. There are quite a few perks for supporters, including a very lively Discord chat where you can enjoy more conversation on these topics, previews to new concepts Honey Badger Radio will be exploring, and a supportive community. And if you are one of the very many people who say you don't have the money, then help us out by subscribing on Minds, www.minds.com/honeybadgerradio. The last shill I did lost us 14 subs and gained us 27 patrons. By my calculation, if I managed to lose 13,000 subs, we'd have 20,000 additional patrons. Now what would I do with all that money?
I'm on a boat. I'm on a boat. Everybody look at me because I'm sailing on a boat.
I'd probably continue to do what we've been doing all along. Take resources from our audience interested in seeing men's issues given a voice and give those resources to artists who will create podcasts, animations, artwork, and hopefully one day VR experiences.
Why do you hate women?
Yeah, damn Siglorn!
How dare you, madam?
Art exists at the liminal edge of what we can conceive of. Not all art, but the kind of art that speaks through generations. We wouldn't have letters without... We wouldn't have an alphabet without cave paintings. We might not have spoken language without song. Art expands the possibilities of what we can conceive of and how we can communicate and what we can communicate. In turn, the freest place for creative expression is here in the men's rights community because we carry the strongest shield against weaponized irrationality that is currently spearheading the drive to neuter art and muzzle artists. Honey Badger Radio's mandate is simple. Create a world where it's not strange to have compassion for men, where it's not strange to have compassion for anyone. Interestingly enough, questioning is the path to that world. How we continue to pursue that mandate is to bring individuals who want to see men's issues spoken together with artists who want to see men's issues heard. It's simple, but in my opinion, all business plans should be simple.
We are going to enforce the trade deals that we have, and we're going to hold people accountable. When I was Secretary of State, we actually increased American exports globally 30%. We increased them to China 50%. So I know how to really work to get new jobs and to get exports that help to create more new jobs.
But you haven't done it in 30 years, in 26 years.
Well, I've been a senator, Brenda, and I've been a Secretary of State, and I have done a lot.
One of the worst trade deals to ever happen to the
that is your
manufacturing
opinion.
industry.
That is your opinion.
This was a social experiment put on by New York University professors to discuss gender in politics. They switched Donald Trump for Brenda King and Hillary Clinton for Jonathan Gordon. Their results were surprising, at least to them. All the leftists involved in this project suddenly came face to face with their own latent sexual chauvinism. In a study, very different from this one, researchers found that when people witnessed a male and female criminal both engaging in equivalent violence, as in they were both equally violent, the female criminal was misrepresented or misremembered as less violent than the male. This is sometimes called the women are wonderful effect. We make our memories of experiences conform to the dominant social narrative. In this case, the pronounced women are wonderful effect, leftist experience made them incapable of seeing the person behind the gender when it came to Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And when they reversed the genders, they suddenly could see it. Quoting the New York University article on the experiment, we heard a lot of, now I understand how this happened, meaning how Trump won the election. People got upset. There was a guy 2 rows in front of me who was literally holding his head in his hands, and the person with him was rubbing his back. The simplicity of Trump's message became easier for people to hear when it was coming from a woman. That was a theme. One person said, I'm just so struck by how precise Trump's technique is. Another, a musical theater composer, actually said that Trump created hummable lyrics, while Clinton talked a lot and everything she said was true and factual, but there was no hook to it. Another theme was about not liking either candidate. You know, I wouldn't vote for either one. Someone said that Jonathan Gordon, the male Hillary Clinton, was really punchable because of all the smiling. And a lot of people were just very surprised by the way it upended their expectations about what they thought they would feel or experience. There was someone who described Brenda King, the female Donald Trump, as his Jewish aunt who would take care of him, even though he might not like his aunt. Someone else described her as the middle school principal who you don't like, but it knows doing good things for you. Yes, you didn't see this before because you're sexists. You think women are weak but wonderful. You don't see Hillary Clinton's sleazy tactics, nor do you really respect her as a politician who should be able to take Trump's jabs on the chin. Ironically, you respect male Hillary more than female Hillary because you're willing to judge male Hillary based on his personality. When you look at female Hillary, you see a vagina. When you look at male Hillary, you see a person, warts and all. And the way you reconcile your profound sexism is by saying everyone who isn't as sexist as you just hates women, just hates them. The reality is we're just more able to set aside gender to see the person inside the gender. Having leftists analyze gender roles is like giving the job of picking out color schemes to colorblind, and not just colorblind fascists. They lack the ability to see red, and they get offended when you tell them that there actually are numbers in these colored blobs. And instead of listening to the people who are not colorblind, these colorblind fascists believe the only way to free color from its tyranny is to silence those who can see red. We've given the task to deconstruct the social narrative around gender to people who are the most compliant to consensus-based thinking, thus most compliant to the narrative around gender. And predictably, they've determined the best way to challenge gender roles is to silence those who aren't already completely beholden to them. Silence the people who can look past Donald Trump's dick and see Brenda King, the hard-ass battle axe school principal who, as her student, you don't like, but you know is going to go to bat for your future. There is no 29 in this disc, according to feminists. Imagine for a moment if these individuals not only controlled public discourse regarding gender, but were also able to rewrite our experiences to serve their narrative. No one will ever be allowed to tell anyone they can actually see anything colored red again. Except, by red, I mean women's individuality, because this isn't just about ensuring men's voices get heard. When Jonathan went to this convention, he was talking to a female engineer who was very, very invested in the innovations that she was creating for this new form of technology. And another man came up to her and started talking about how she was a victim of the culture in Silicon Valley. And this woman looked very uncomfortable as she tried to move the conversation away from being framed as a victim, being forced into that gender role. Remember, these people don't care if you're a woman who defines herself by her actions, innovations, and achievement. They will get in your face and demand you play the role of measuring stick for men's actions. That you see yourself in terms of reactions to men's actions, and not positive, oh no, only negative, only as a victim of men's actions. And if you refuse their framing of your reality, they shame you, they ostracize you, they insult you, they belittle you. You're a handmaiden, you have Stockholm Syndrome and internalized misogyny. Basically, they call you an easily influenced loose woman, a moral slut. If you don't agree with their framing of you as a victim of everything and anything, then don't agree that you're just a fucking point on a fucking board. Textual rape, another fucking point on feminism's fucking scoreboard. Using VR, feminists and social justice warriors will not only be able to convince those who are already easily shamed into conforming their beliefs to social consensus, they will also be able to convince anyone who denies the narrative if it conflicts with their own experience. To give an example, this includes everyone who disagrees with feminism. Disagrees feminism is necessary in the West, since obviously women are not oppressed here, where they can see them, but agrees that feminism is necessary over there, or back then. In other words, the people who resist feminist framing of reality when it comes to their direct experiences, but agree that everywhere feminism isn't, is a hellhole of demonic males oppressing their women. Their experiences will be brought in line with the dominant narrative surrounding gender. They will have the last thing standing between them and being a full-fledged social justice warrior removed. And since they can only resist it when it conflicts with their experience, expect to see them to conform as well. This technology has the ability to make online communities engaging in lockstep ideological purity even worse. Now they won't just be comprised of people who adhere to consensus, even in defiance of their own experience. They'll include people who deny consensus if it contradicts their own experience, because those people will now have the correct experiences to conform with the narrative. The echo chamber effect that's generating super puritanism on the internet is going to reach critical mass once they get a hold of the ability to edit and manipulate experience itself. It seems like everything we've seen up to this point is just shaping up for the big kahuna, the boss fight against the worst aspects of human nature, played out in everyone's head. The stakes get higher, the zealots get more rabid, the battlefield darker. And once again, the only thing that will make a difference is bringing sanity back into the narrative. Our craving for ideological purity is rooted in our need to see ourselves as heroes or victims. And our need to see ourselves as heroes or victims is rooted in twin shame, in the twin shame of both. All victims are weak. They wear their shame on their sleeve. And all heroes are secretly villains. They wear their shame inside. Only empathy can change that, recognizing the vulnerability inherent in the hero role and the strength inherent in the victim role. Only empathy can make us all human again. And I'll leave it as an exercise to the viewer to decide how hero and victim maps to men and women, especially when it comes to feminist theory, feminist conjecture. Help us ensure this isn't the only voice in VR. www.feedthebadger.com
Wind whipping out my coat. You can't stop me,